Okay, now we're going to switch gears just a little bit. We're going to talk about concrete calendar systems. This is really a beginning visual schedule. This is for the child who comes in and is totally random, doesn't have much symbolization, knowing what one thing stands for another, really needs to start getting meaning into their life. So as you can see, it's really a schedule made with objects. It maps out the person's day using those symbols, and it introduces that combination of this is the symbol and here we're doing it. So symbolization in context. It provides an overview of the day's activities, really eases transitions, and supports behavior plans. When you're getting ready to do a concrete calendar system, first you identify the schedule across environments. What are they going to do repeatedly? And then you identify the symbols. And I've included this wonderful website that's actually from the Texas School of Blind and Visually Impaired. But they have so many wonderful suggestions for tactile symbols if you're going to use a concrete calendar or real object kind of schedule. Then you need to construct a container to show it. Lots of times I use mail cubbies or mail boxes. Those little shoe tree holders also work as well, but anything that can hold big enough to hold real objects kind of in a serial fashion. And then you have to have an all done box. So you go to the first thing and grab something, do it, and then it goes to the all done box. So you're going to prompt the individual to the schedule box or the schedule book or the cubbies to get something. So say the first thing you do is breakfast. Maybe the symbol you've chosen is a spoon. Then you take the spoon to the first activity. Sometimes I'll even have an outline of a spoon there so they can match it when they get there. They do the first activity, they've eaten their breakfast, and then they take the spoon, the symbol, not the same one they've eaten with, to the all done box and put it in, all done, and then you guide them back to the schedule box or schedule book and to pick the next activity. So here's an example of some symbols that you might use for a very young child. The diapers, the washing up, then breakfast, then music. So all of those are nice symbols for a young child to learn. So how do you know if you've got them and you're ready to move on to maybe a more complex symbol system? If they're taking a symbol and going independently to the activity. If, for instance, they take out the spoon and they walk right away to the table for breakfast, or if they're smiling or laughing when you take out the symbol for a preferred activity, you know you've got it. Or if they're digging through the all done box to find the activity symbol that they want, you know that they're making connections, they're developing symbolization. Those are all wonderful, wonderful things. And I can't say enough about the power of this, no matter how old the child is. I've had children who were 14, 15 years old who were not communicating at all, and over time with a concrete calendar system started to use them, and it makes such a big difference in their lives. And then they can move forward in their language system. Okay, let's talk about visual supports. I don't talk about visual supports enough, do I? One thing to really realize is there is a difference between auditory and visual stimulus. So one of the real differences is that auditory stimulus goes away. You talk and then it's done, whereas a visual stimulus is permanent. So if you're having trouble with what to pay attention to, it's there and it stays there, and it helps you. If you wander, you can come back to it. But an auditory stimulus, it's, kind of run what you brung. I say it one time, and if you didn't get it, too bad. So That's one reason. We talked about another reason, and when we were talking about symbolization, is that it really supports and scaffolds that meaning. Those pictures give you a hint to what the word is standing for. So we know that language is made up of symbols, right? We've all agreed that the word table stands for a flat thing with 4 legs. There's no hints in that word table or the written word table to tell you what it means. You just have to memorize table, table. But if we use a picture, it gives a little hint, and it kind of supports and scaffolds meaning for children with autism. Lastly, we use language to mediate our activity, don't we? So if I said, what'd you do last night? You're thinking in language. Well, I got home late and I watched a little TV and then I ate dinner. You're thinking in language. Children with autism may not be thinking in language. They may be thinking in pictures, and it's harder to mediate their activity with it. So if we can give them some visual symbols to mediate their schedule, it helps them be able to monitor their activities. It takes the place of auditory kind of executive functioning and planning. So, not all symbols are made alike, right? A lot of times I go into classrooms and there's lots of board maker symbols. And board maker symbols are great. They're line drawings and they're really nice and clear and they're awesome. But not all children understand what a board maker symbol means. And so therefore, it doesn't help them. You have to use a symbol that a child knows. So the continuum of visual meaning is objects are the easiest. So I give you a glass and I want a drink of water. A glass stands for a glass. So there's no separation in what it stands for. It is what it is. Or a partial miniature object can stand for something. Sometimes I'll use, when I'm toilet training, those little tiny plastic toilets that flush that you get at Spencer's Gifts. They come on a little keychain because it's kind of tough to drag a real toilet around. So sometimes I'll use that. Next are real photographs. Real photographs look a lot like what it represents, but it doesn't have the third dimension. And then the next are line drawings. And we know line drawings in and of themselves have a continuum, don't they? Some line drawings are very detailed, look almost like a photograph. Some are just a couple of lines that represent something. And lastly would be orthography, or the written word, where there's absolutely no hint, right? We've got that word table, but there's nothing in those letters that helps us to know that it's a flat surface with 4 legs. So we've really covered a lot of ground, and many of this will be ground we'll cover in more detail later on in the course, but this chapter really covered a lot of information. The importance of physical environment, the importance of thinking about the temporal instruction in your teaching, and visual, concrete systems, and priming. So we're going to get a lot more information about visual stuff. You're not through with me harping on the importance of visuals, but I think we've covered quite a bit of ground today, and I'll see you next week.